When kids are upset, it's easy to want to skip the feelings and move straight to the solution. And does this work sometimes? Sure. If they scrape their knee or drop their ice cream cone, then problem-solving mode can lead to a quick resolution. But what if the emotions are bigger and more complex? What if you've thrown every ounce of logic and reasoning you possibly can at the problem, but the tears and tantrums don't stop? Here's the truth. Children can't reason their way out of emotions, especially if they don't feel understood. Offering solutions means that you've identified a problem, but not that you've really seen and heard the person facing it. And what may look like irrational behavior from your child may actually make a lot of sense once you can understand how children view the world. In this video, we'll go over what's really going on when kids are navigating big feelings and how you can understand and empathize with them for a stronger relationship and improved regulation. Empathy has become a bit of a buzzword in the modern world, so it's important that we understand exactly what it is. Simply put, it's the ability to understand another person's experience from their perspective. That comes more naturally with people who share similar experiences or worldviews. Shared perspectives give us familiar reference points that make it easier and often faster to understand what another person is feeling. Empathy can also be developed by intentionally trying to understand the experiences of people we don't intuitively understand or already agree with. This kind of empathy requires more curiosity and effort, but it can be incredibly valuable for all parties. And that is exactly the kind of empathy that adults develop when they work to understand children. When we view empathy through a developmental lens, it means understanding how a child, at their specific developmental stage, experiences and interprets the world. This includes how they respond to challenges, the impact that those challenges have on them, and how their environment, family dynamics, and significant life events shape their perspective. It also helps us understand children's behavior. Developmental level directly impacts the child's interpretation of an experience, which triggers an emotional response that leads to a behavior based on the coping skills they have access to. An 8-year-old who has developed a basic understanding of cause and effect and delayed gratification may respond to being told they need to clean their room before playing by feeling disappointed, but still complying or negotiating because they can connect the task with a future reward. A 3-year-old who has not yet developed those skills is more likely to respond with crying, refusal, or a tantrum because the future outcome is too abstract to regulate their behavior in the moment. Instead of seeing the 3-year-old's reaction as defiance or manipulation, the adult can recognize it as a developmentally appropriate response to frustration. That shift allows the adult to respond with support rather than shame, meeting the child where they're at and helping them develop the skills they don't yet have. However, as I'm sure you've experienced, this is much more easily said than done. So what is it that makes empathy so difficult in the moment? Why is it often so hard to connect emotionally to a distressed child? At its core, it comes down to fundamental differences in skills and perspectives between children and adults. First, communication. Adults primarily communicate with words. Children communicate through behavior and play. So when a child is distressed, what an adult experiences as bad behavior is often the child's most available form of expression. Think about how your car tells you there's a problem with the engine. Most of the time, it does not clearly state exactly what the problem is or exactly how to fix it. Instead, it just flashes the dreaded check engine light. This is not because the car is trying to spite or anger you, but because it's the only form of communication available to it to let you know there's a problem. Second is reasoning. Adults usually have at least some capacity for logical thinking. We can move between abstract and concrete, past and present, general and specific. Children don't do this in the same way. They think concretely, specifically, and live almost entirely in the present. So adult explanations and logic tend to feel irrelevant and even overwhelming to a child, especially when they're dysregulated. Third is the sense of reality. Adults tend to base reality more on facts, whereas children tend to base reality on perception, desires, and emotions. A child can genuinely believe, I don't want it to rain, so it's not going to rain, even if there are dark clouds overhead. And next, distress. Without the proper skill set, distress causes children to be more prone to aggression, oppositionalism, tantrums, refusal, and what adults might classify as irrational behavior. This can be highly disturbing and perplexing for adults, especially because on top of the child's dysregulation, they lack the necessary communication skills for the adult to know and therefore understand what the child is experiencing. So adults tend to focus more on getting rid of the behavior because that approach is more tangible and accessible to them. And by doing so, the adult's control short-circuits empathy, demonstrating to the child that they are misunderstood and discouraged from expressing their feelings and needs. Children's irrational behaviors are also often misinterpreted as personality traits rather than a reflection of their environment or relationships. Because kids are changing and developing in real time, many experiences feel new and unpredictable. And be honest, is the best version of you the one that shows up when you are navigating new and unpredictable challenges? Empathy towards children is also limited when we stop being curious about them. In other words, when we stop learning about our kids because we already think we've got them all figured out. Newsflash, you don't. But it can be tempting to feel that way because frankly, life would be a lot easier if it were true. It's human nature to create categories and labels in order to predict behavior, respond more quickly, and feel a greater sense of certainty. It's one of the many ways the human brain strives for efficiency, by creating cognitive shortcuts. The problem is that children are continually and dynamically changing, meaning that the mental model you've developed of their identity must be flexible and adaptable. Labels might reduce your own cognitive load, but they also limit your perspective and insight. Empathy is sacrificed for efficiency. We're responding to who our child has been, not who they are becoming. Now that we've identified some of the barriers to empathizing with children, let's discuss how they can be overcome. Here are 3 strategies that you can use to better understand and emotionally connect with your child. Number 1. Learn to speak their language. This means doing the work to interpret behavior as an expression of feelings, desires, and needs. Once you get an idea of what the behavior is trying to communicate, reflect it back to them using plain and simple language. Phrases like, "I can see that this really matters to you," or "I can tell you really want to do that," help a child feel more understood. This doesn't mean giving in to every one of their desires, but it does mean helping them understand that you know what matters to them, even if the answer still has to be no. Number 2, recognize their limitations before assuming their intent. Don't assume they should know better if their capacity to know better has not developed yet. Emotional regulation, impulse control, perspective taking, and cause and effect reasoning are learned skills, not inherent character traits. When behavioral challenges are interpreted as a reflection of the child's identity, the child will begin to view themselves as inherently defective and will actually end up feeling less capable of learning and positive change. You can't shame somebody into growing. Instead, recognize limitations and treat behaviors as information. This highlights important skill deficits, which creates opportunity for teaching and practice. And third, focus on regulation before reasoning. If you jump straight into logic with a dysregulated child, they're more likely to feel lost, confused, or misunderstood, even if what you're saying makes perfect sense. Their defenses go up, and yours often follow. At that point, communication turns into mutual defensiveness, a ping pong game where words just bounce back and forth and nothing actually lands. Regulation has to come first. Start by helping their bodies feel calm. Focus on staying regulated yourself so you can serve as a steady, grounding presence. Help them feel connected and remind them that they're not alone in what they're feeling. Once regulation is achieved, the brain shifts back into learning mode and logic and reasoning are much more likely to stick. Empathizing with children does not have to mean letting their emotions run the show. And it doesn't mean giving into every demand or lowering every expectation. It means aligning your expectations, your understanding, and your responses with their developmental stage. It means recognizing their needs and limitations and teaching and supporting them from a place of connection rather than control. When you respond this way, your child learns that their feelings matter and that they're capable of growth. And as you work to understand them better, you can both develop greater emotional awareness, patience, and compassion. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed or learned something from this video, make sure you like and subscribe for more. And if you have a question or a topic you'd like me to cover, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.